Meeting started. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Ready to open up the reports? And superintendent report. School spotlight.
Yeah, it's my honor to work with two amazing principals, our K-3 principals at Hubbard and Indian Creek are going to talk a little bit about their schools, but in particular our early literacy efforts to make sure all of our kids are readers.
Hi trustees, I'm Justine Burgess, the principal at Hubbard Elementary. Before we jump to early literacy, we're going to talk about our early childhood preschool program first, and so I have some team members here that will speak on behalf of some of our students. So first, we are, on this left side, a large team who supports 3- and 4-year-olds. And looking at this, it's a collaboration of a lot of people coming together from a lot of different professions. Some of these are housed from KSD, and some of these are contracted services. So we're just a proud team that serves our 3- and 4-year-olds. And one of our preschool teachers, Andrea Martin, is going to talk a little bit about how we serve our students.
So we get our kiddos from all different realms. One of our biggest ways is through the infant toddler program. So they go to infant toddler up until they're 3. And if they're already in that program, then they come to us and we do a transition meeting and assess and see if they qualify for services in the school district. That's a big portion of where we get our kiddos. We also do screeners, developmental screeners throughout the year. We do 3 of them. One of them is a 2-day, and then we have 2 1-days throughout the year. And then we also, with child playing, we, anybody can refer a kiddo. So a neighbor can refer a doctor. So pretty much they can come from anywhere. It's just calling the school and saying that they want to refer a child. We get a lot of parent referrals and doctor referrals right now. So kids are coming to us between the ages of 2.5 to 5 before kindergarten, all throughout time. We do, at the preschool, our focus is on the whole child. So we work on social, emotional, cognitive, motor, self-help or adaptive skills, and then our pre-academic or cognitive skills. We have 2 sessions. First one's for 3- to 4-year-olds, second session in the afternoon is from 4 to 5-year-olds. And then we have Jen Wright, and she is one of our previous parents who's just going to speak about her little guy and the impact that preschool has had on their family.
So my little guy, he went to preschool from 3 until he was ready for kindergarten. He was born with bilateral dislocated knees, so his knees were actually bent the opposite direction at birth. He walks kind of on the inside of his ankle, so he has the reverse of club foot. He had extra toes and extra thumbs at birth, and he's had multiple eye surgeries for alignment for his eyes. And I didn't even know about the developmental preschool until the infant toddler told me about it. My daughter went to a regular preschool, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with my son? Because regular preschools, they have to be potty trained, and how do you potty train a child who can't walk? And this has just been an amazing program. When he first started at the preschool, he was pretty much nonverbal, very few words, and by the time he went to kindergarten, he was able to get off of his IEP in the first year of kindergarten. Yeah, so he's on 504 now, not an IEP. But I just feel like he would have probably fallen through the cracks if he hadn't had this amazing opportunity to advance his skills. And they don't just work on the academics, they work on everything. I mean, he was a pretty emotional child, and they worked on teaching him to stand up for himself and speak, tell people what he needed. And then they work on just the daily activities. I mean, something as simple as going to the bathroom for him was a challenge, and they found a stool that worked for him with handrails that worked for him because he wears braces on his legs, and trying to get up onto the toilet even is something that he was challenged with. So I'm very fortunate for all of these people. I brought this just because he had double thumbs when he was little, and these girls were so amazing, they actually captured his double thumbprint for me so that I could always have that with me. So I'm impressed. I think it's an amazing program. I think there's a lot of kids that really benefit from it, and as you can see, he's a happy kid, and he's doing amazingly well. He's in 2nd grade right now, on track, and I can't thank you guys enough. So.
We just wanted to highlight this program a little bit. Every day we serve students from this age range with varying abilities, from physical to mental to cognitive. And so it's just an exciting thing to see what these ladies can do and then have the impact of our children in our community. So huge thanks for them wanting to come speak on behalf of that. So next we'll jump into some early.
I have a question. How many
Please.
pupils do you have, or how many students do you have in the
So
program?
at this time, we range from about 60 to 90 students.
Students, wow.
Yeah, so we have an AM session, a PM.
Wow.
We also collaborate with Head Start, so
I
we
didn't
have
expect that, wow.
10 kids in that. And then we're constantly having students come in because when they hit 3 years old, they qualify for our program.
Okay, good to
So
know.
it's a all year
That's
evolving.
amazing.
Carla Drake was someone that was up here. She's an assessment teacher, so she
Way to go, Carla.
has a she caseloads about 60 to 90 students as a special education teacher.
Wow. Such a,
It's pretty amazing. Yeah. Any other questions you guys have about our preschool programs? So next, I'm going to have Indian Creek and Barker start us off about our literacy goals that we've been working on as a team.
So I'm Kimberly Barker, I'm the principal over at Indian Creek. So Justine and I both do K-3, so we are kind of early literacy experts sometimes and sometimes not. So we wanted to highlight the work that our elementary principal team has been doing it together this year. It actually started last year with Kevin's lead, where we started collaborating together across the district and trying to get some of our common practices together, align what we were doing at each building, and trying to work more closely together to have those things be more consistent so that we could kind of learn from each other and create some of those common practices. So we started in May, working through that. We started a 3-year plan. We also took a summer retreat. The principals, we all got together for 3 days in Donley, and we spent the 3 days planning our year. Like, we mapped out everything from back to school days to the ongoing PD that we were going to do. This is a picture of us there. We also did yoga on the beach, all sorts of stuff. So we also worked on some professional development that we took. Principal Burgess led us in some PD in June. We set our outline of outcomes that we wanted to have as a district across our elementary. We made a collective 3-year trajectory. We did district-wide professional development planning. We're implementing a program called Strive and implementing some early literacy with a program called Haggerty that we are all doing across the district.
And last year, for some board members that were here, you got to see some teachers and students
Yes.
show Haggerty and some of the routines. So as a team, we really dug into that.
So this is a snapshot of our 3-year plan. So this is the year we're on right here, and this is something we as principals collaborated on together. So we're focusing on AVID, early literacy, math, and then we'll be progressing through that over the 3 years. And we plan to continue each year to revamp it as we go through to make sure that we stay on pace and get to where we need in 3 years.
So Principal Barker kind of talked about this a little bit, trying to look at the overview. So after some support from Wendy of connecting us with Strive at the start of last school year, at Hubbard we went through and tried it out. We found a lot of success. So then went to present to the principals at all the other schools. Did our plan retreat, realizing that's something that we wanted to continue with. And then throughout the year, we've been working on a lot of district-wide professional development. So we got feedback from our teachers and our coaches that we love having teachers connect together. So on our 3 big PD days throughout the year, we've been coming together and talking about some PLC and then common and formative assessments. So that 3rd grade from my school, 3rd grade from your school, they can get together and talk about similar practices since we have the same curriculum. And then we went on to continuing Strive, some more PD. Our instructional coaches have taken the work that we planned last summer, and as we continue to make it more intense on what we need in our schools, our coaches are then in classrooms every day along with us, with specific observations, and then tweaking and doing some PD with what each school needs. So for us, it's like decodable routines. So we saw a need that we wanted more teachers to have similar styles in our core instruction and intervention, so the coaches are able to go in and really fine tune some intense teaching on that. Then we've been working on Haggerty and Strive, the CFAs, throughout November, and we continue that as cycles in each building. So coming to now, we are still working on the same thing of CFAs. So it's a cycle of looking at assessments and how to change your teaching with that. And then Barker will talk about what's next for us.
So we actually have some data that we want to share with you. It's on the slides here, but we decided the print may be a little small.
So what this one is looking at, the first one is growth this year. So this one is from September 2023. It's called IRI, Idaho Reading Indicator, and to January. And what we're seeing as a district in this year of what we are growing is 10%, about 10%. And then what we really like to look at is the subtest of these to look at our growth. So across the board, we saw 7% as a state, whereas a school district we were at 9%. And then a lot of our schools are ranging between that 9 to 12% growth from September to January. The second piece of data you have is something that we are pretty excited to see, where a comparison for May 23, so this is our end of the year IRI last year, and where we're at right now for January is we're about 1% off. So what we are seeing is a 6-month increase of scores from previous years. So it's showing that the work we're putting in is making a change for our students. We still have room to grow, absolutely, but we feel like we're on the right track as a district.
And when we were looking at it, every school is making pretty close to the same amount of growth in all the overall reading scores. So we're seeing that it's not just one school that's outperforming. We are all increasing by that 10%. And then compared to the state, we are right on where we need to be. And again, being able to see that in May of last year, we still have, 4 months left of teaching to be able to get to that place. And so seeing where we are compared to the end of last year is pretty neat.
Yay!
Do you guys have any questions about the data or anything that's in front of you there?
I think Kim was explaining a little bit. Can you tell me, I just didn't explain the data a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
The green, the yellow, the
So
red.
yep, the green is
Proficient.
students that are proficient, yellow are the kids that are what we call tier 2, and red is the tier 3. So we always like to see the green grow, the red decrease, and the yellow sometimes will increase because our reds decrease because they typically move over that. But the proficiency, and our goal is always to have obviously 100% proficiency, but we usually typically try to get the amount of, we look at our pre-scores and try to grow a certain percentage each year, so.
Another way to look at the colors is tier 1 is grade level or above. The yellows, maybe 1 grade level behind, and then the red is maybe 2 grade levels or more behind.
I personally love the idea of the best practices. Find a school that's doing good, see what they're doing.
Yes.
I love that we're doing that, so kudos.
We even
And I think it shows differences
Yeah.
here.
We had a leadership team meeting, and this is probably the first time I've had a teacher say this. We were looking at data, and they said, I want to know what that school's doing. Can we go over and do observations? Because they've been able to have a lot of those common conversations in the PD we've been providing with them being together district-wide. So it's not a competition anymore. It's more of like, we want to learn from each other, and we met this team, and we've had these conversations. And so continuing that, we feel like has been super beneficial for them.
And then you said coach, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, an instructional coach is someone that, as principals, we meet with weekly, but we talk about what does a teacher need. So there's oftentimes a teacher needs support on best practices in math or reading or writing, because teachers often come to us without the training, or there's a new curriculum, or there's just a new scientific, like science of reading is a new thing that not every teacher received in school. So the coaches come alongside them, and they can work with them through the curriculum, they model, they might co-teach, and then they also give feedback. And they do that for individual teachers or a group of teachers, depending on the need at that level. So in an elementary school, as a principal, our roles are to facilitate that and to find and look at data, what do we think is needed? but the coaches there are then to give a hand and a support to those teachers. So they do coaching cycles where they might meet with a teacher and go through a process, or they might meet with a team as a whole grade level. For an example, my 3rd grade was working on blending boards. So best practice is to read phrases or multisyllabic words. And the blending boards were not at the level that the students needed. It was pretty rigorous. And so the coach came alongside them. Let's look at what the vocabulary words are, what's grade level, how do we tweak it for them? So the coach took time to do that. So I'm out there facilitating and watching what they're doing, but the coach is there supporting them. Does that help a little bit? Yeah. Marker, would you add anything about
I was
what
gonna say, they help us a lot with our building-wide initiatives that we're working on, so they kind of give us that second hand of trying to help support the things that we're trying to do. We always say, like, there's not a lot of people that manage the amount of, you know, if you count the student personnel that we have as well as the teachers, so they help us with those things and their support to the teachers, so teachers can seek them out, or they're able to provide, like I said, building-wide initiatives or implementation of things, and I don't know, they're our go-to experts on a lot of things.
They can attend a lot more training and be out of the building to go get the best practices and bring it back more often than we can. All right, and then next steps for us.
Yeah, so our next steps is to continue to look at our 3-year plan and work together as a team. I think we found this year to be highly helpful to us as administrators to learn from each other and be able to work together in a lot of the implementation that we're doing. It also helped, I think, for our teachers to see that we're all on the same page and we're all doing the same things together and they can lean on each other as well. So we plan to continue with our 3-year plan, focusing on those things together. We'll continue, we have still work this year, we're not done yet, even though it seems like we've gone through quite a bit of the year already. So lots of work. We'll do another professional development in May across the district. We plan to do summer work still together, and then we'll work on planning out our year next year of that professional development and that alignment that we want to continue to do for the years to come.
Do you guys have any questions about early literacy or our focus?
Do you take these tests for this just in January and May
So
and September?
it's the IRI or iStation is a program that we use to give the IRI. It's actually given monthly to the students. They have to take it at the beginning of every month. And then as a district, we look at our fall scores, our winter scores, which is the January benchmark, and May. And then the state looks at our fall and our spring scores. So, and those are the official IRI that we get evaluated on, so.
And then the monthly ones provide subtests, so it's like small categories of reading, so comprehension, fluency, and we use those to guide our instruction.
So teachers are analyzing it monthly.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for your time.
You guys are awesome.
I think Troy's gonna click for me.
Oh, okay.
Chairman Nixon and trustees, I'm gonna just hand these to you real quick, and I'm gonna be fairly brief. I'm really just here to celebrate. And I have a good team here with me too. We have a small work group. I've got Courtney Shear, who's one of our dual language teachers and our coordinator for the program. Kelly Robinson, EL teacher at Kuna High School. Andrew Horning, Swan Falls French. And then Robbie's been a part of that with us as well. So a few years ago, the state passed a law allowing for a seal of biliteracy to be added to high school diplomas upon graduation. And so tonight, one of the policies that you'll be reviewing is 615.1, which is diploma designations, which includes this information, which is why I wanted to share it with you so that you're aware of it, because we really want to get students applying for it this year, so I wanted to make sure you knew what we were doing if people ask you about it. So this is an opportunity for students who can demonstrate proficiency in English and another world language, any other world language. And if they are able to demonstrate that proficiency through the criteria that is laid out here for you, then they qualify for this seal of biliteracy on their diplomas. So with this policy, if you approve that new policy, that will allow us now in Kuna to offer these as well as our students graduate. So if you'll go to that next slide for me, Troy. I'm sharing with you a simple flow chart so you can understand how our process will work. Now that we have this in place, our freshman year, we will meet with our students and let them know about the opportunity for them to receive this seal of biliteracy. and we'll share with them the criteria which is listed here. When it comes time to apply for it, they'll simply meet with the counselor, they'll fill out the application, which I gave you a copy of as well, and then it goes to the counselor for review. Here's the criteria. They have to meet English proficiency, and we've listed 4 different ways that they can show that. Either through an ACT or SAT score, or on our state testing, the Idaho Standard Achievement Test, the ISAT, with those scores. For our EL students, our students who are learning English as a second language, they also take an English language proficiency test as part of their program. And the 4.2 score is the criteria for them to exit out of EL services. So that is an additional way that EL students could show English language proficiency. Whether English is your first language or a second or a third language, you have to meet one of these criteria. The world language side of this is the exciting part, because dual language for a long time has had this goal of having the seal of biliteracy available for them. But the cool part about this is this will allow any student of any language, any world language. So students that are in Mr. Horning's concurrent credit classes can also achieve this as well. So there is a test, it's the American FAF, I can't remember the acronym. They have a testing system that tests for world language proficiencies. So students could take that test, and then if they score at an intermediate proficiency level or higher, if they complete a 201 course or higher of concurrent credit, so that would be a 3rd semester, is that right, Mr. Horning, did I get that right? Of dual credit language, that would also meet the criteria. Or in some cases, we have another test, this is a language proficiency test, a CLEP, that some students could take, but they would have to get approval because it depends on the circumstances. Because we do want them to go through the program if we can to help them with their, solidify their learning. So that is a possibility as well. If they meet both of these criteria, then the counselor is able to send that student the acceptance letter, and the registrar puts that seal of biliteracy on their diploma. They'll learn English. So it's an exciting thing, because with this helps our future ready. That's the goal of our district, to have future ready students. These students who have this seal of biliteracy are going to be in more demand in the workplace, because they are bilingual, biliterate. They'll be able to seek jobs and outperform others because they have both languages. So excited for this to be in place finally, and I can't wait for graduation this year as we get our first applicants and our first seals on the diploma. So any questions that I can answer, or the team can answer for you?
Do we have a number of students who you think might be applying? Do we have an estimate?
I would say at the most is probably up to 20-ish
Okay.
this year.
Or more.
Maybe more?
Yeah, that would just be from our dual language pool.
Yes.
That's not.
And I don't know how many in the French program.
Well, there's quite a few
Are there?
former ELL kids.
We've got a very significant number, I would
Okay.
say. We're
That's why
excited.
they're here.
That's why we're really excited for this year.
Good.
Well, and you said 9th grade applicants, are you allowing 10th through 12th to apply as well?
No, so at 9th grade, we're just gonna introduce this to them so that they know that this is available to them.
Okay.
Because then they can decide if they're gonna go through the French route, through dual language, or just Spanish, or German, or if they already have a foreign language, then they can focus on their English proficiency and complete the other part through one of the tests.
So can anyone who's in 10th through 12th apply for it right now?
I think it was just the senior year where they'll actually apply for it, because it's for their graduation diploma.
Okay.
So senior year is when they would actually apply for it.
And so, students can take Spanish in middle school too. So is there a way to maybe make them aware of that kind of path, like while they're choosing a language, that they can do that even earlier possibly? Cause I know
Yeah, we could.
some of them just, kind of start down that road a little earlier
Yeah.
and get pretty far, even starting in 7th and 8th grade.
We definitely can go down to the middle school level. We can connect with Kim Riggs, who's the college and career go on at the middle school level. Definitely can do that. That's a good idea.
Okay, so you're saying when they're a senior, they apply?
That's when they actually apply,
Okay,
because they can only get this seal at graduation.
right, okay,
Yes, good question.
okay.
Any other questions?
I might give a comment to the multicultural carnival that happened at Reed. There was a little girl with her dad, and all the future graduates of this 2024 that had been in the dual language program, pictures of them were all down the hallway. And the dad asked me what the pictures were, and I told him. And he looked at the little girl and said, see, you can do this. You can have your picture on there when you're ready. And it's exciting the work that they have done to give that picture of what's possible. So
Yeah, thank you.
kudos to those awesome teachers.
Yeah, so, all right, well, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you. All right. At this time, we plan on going into an executive session, so I need a motion made.
I motion that we go into executive session accordance with Idaho Code Section 74-201, or 2061B.
Do I have a second?
I second.
And in favor? Kirsty?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Yeah, just go on down. So we will be going to executive session. So thank you. we are out of executive session. And I am looking for, is that? Oh, sorry. Thank you for pointing that out to me.
She snuck off.
All right, so I need a,
Kim,
is there anything?
we'll keep going with the order of
consent.
approving the agenda.
Yeah, even though Kirsty's not here?
Yep.
Okay,
I
thank
just
you.
had a question quickly. Number 3, are we gonna do the communications, celebrations and communications, or is that not something?
Oh, yes, thank you. So we need to do the celebrations and communications
We need to approve the
agenda first. Do I have a motion that we approve the agenda? Just the regular agenda, right? Motion to approve the agenda,
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Michael?
Aye.
Hillary?
Aye, sorry.
And Kim, aye. All right, and so now celebrations, Kenway Award and communications. Thank you, Hillary.
Yeah, I think the celebrations is Mr. Beamer. There he is, right in
Yes.
front. I would ask you to share this.
Chairman
Thank you.
Dixon and trustees, on last Tuesday, we had the Kuna Middleton Small Town Throwdown, say that really. Over at Middleton, our leadership kids put it on with our athletic director, Luke Wool, and it was for a Make-A-Wish with a young girl who has leukemia. Raised almost $5,000 for it over there. It was a great event, good basketball game. The place was packed. It was a really incredible night. It was a pretty cool event. So that is our leadership team is phenomenal. If you haven't seen them, 81 of them. So that's
Wow.
the most ever. And then I think there's one more. Yes. And then last Wednesday, we had our signing day. We had 11 kids sign. It was a pretty spectacular day too. Those are the kids that are going on to play at the next level. We're pretty proud of them.
Got to see some C of I
Yep.
games.
Yeah.
Looks like we got some kids going
Yeah,
there.
it's 2 more than we had last year, so
Wow.
we keep getting better and better. And then, it's not up here, but I wanna thank you for all the work for last Friday with the
Oh.
100 years.
Yeah.
celebration.
That was a
pretty
fun
awesome.
day.
Yeah.
I
So,
enjoyed that. It was a good
Yeah,
day.
it was a cool week, so that's
It was very cool.
for that. Thank you.
I'll just keep going if you don't mind. Yeah, thank you for finding our oldest graduates, and our kids were so awesome.
They
And
were
Chairman
awesome.
Nixon, that
It was
they
fun.
celebrated them too, which was really fun.
It was fun.
So as you know, every month we celebrate the Kuna Way, which we highlight people that live our values and beliefs in our school district. And I'm gonna just click through here. We have Mike, we have Tim, Daniel, Zach. Got some district tech support folks in here, Jason, thank you. Jacob, Kelly, Dan, Sarah, that's a great picture of Sarah. And then we have all of these wonderful people who helped us remove snow, when we were, like, all of our tractors and everything were conked out, so really appreciate this great group of people. Janessa, those are some great people to highlight this month, thank you.
Thank you. And communications?
Just a link to communications that the board has received
Okay.
as a whole, so.
Thank you. Do I have an agenda that we approve the consent agenda first? Need a motion just to approve the consent agenda first?
We make a motion to approve,
Just
to
the
bring,
consent agenda first.
to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Wait, you need
But I think
to-
we need to
we have to
remove
do-
the personnel.
Okay, so I second approving the consent agenda with the personnel report.
Do we need to remove first?
Hillary, would you please
First.
rephrase?
Yes, I'd like to approve the consent agenda with the personnel report removed.
And a second?
I second.
Okay. And, so with discussion, on the consent agenda, it's kind of with a sad heart that I let you know that the board has accepted the resignation of Wendy Johnson, which will be effective June 30th, 2024. Thank you for keeping me on. This is hard for me, but I just want people to know that she's had a professional opportunity that really is something she couldn't turn down. And she's done a lot for this school district. I have been able to work with her as a colleague and as a superintendent and as her boss. And I have enjoyed every minute of it. And I just want to thank you for the times that you've put in. And I want to say, once a caveman, always a caveman. So with that being said, I now look for a motion. A motion to take a look at the.
We have to approve that
Oh.
first.
Let's approve it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kirsty?
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the
No,
amended
First, you
personnel.
don't we have to say
report,
aye
right?
first? No, no, okay.
To approve the amended personnel report.
Okay. Second,
I second.
now in favor, correct?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye for me. Now we need another amendment of an amendment. Guys, this is not my field, not my wheelhouse, so thank you for those of you that are out there.
I motion to amend the amendment of the personnel report to hire Kim Beckendall as the interim superintendent starting July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? I would like to make a discussion. I just like to say, Kim.
You're gonna be judged by
Yeah.
awesome. It's okay.
I am so happy to let our administrators, our staff, know that you have decided to have a year here with us to help us as we go through this, to guide the ship. I know you're gonna do a great job, and I appreciate you stepping in, so thank you. Now, I guess now, did you get that written down, Deanne?
That's everything.
Okay, and then
Just gotta approve it.
we gotta approve that,
We have to approve
so.
it. I approve. I
Michael?
second
Aye.
the motion.
Oh, you second?
Yes.
Okay. Then aye. And aye. Okay.
Way to go, Kim Beckendall.
All right, so that being said, are there any delegations at this time?
There.
Okay. So we are on consider proposal for the Building Contractors Association of Southwestern Idaho.
Yeah, Chairman Nixon and trustees, thank you for putting this on the agenda to discuss tonight. I'm not gonna talk too long because I have some amazing people in the audience to talk more specifically about this topic. As you know, we've been working for about 2 years to try to help offset the effects of growth on our patrons. And it started with one of our local farmers coming to us and saying, I love our schools, but I can't keep paying for everything. And feeling the need for some sort of mitigation to help offset the costs. So former trustee Russ Johnson and our district attorney Jill Halinka, we have been meeting over the course of several years with the city and then recently with developers. And they have an offer for us to consider. And I'll have them kind of, former trustee Russ Johnson give kind of some history. And then Jill Halinka will talk about any questions you might have regarding the letter that is linked on your agenda. Thank you, Russ, for joining us tonight.
I'll use this for table here, but
Chairman Nixon, members of the board, thank you for the invitation to attend tonight and offer some perspective, I guess. I offer my perspective as someone who has been involved in these discussions kind of from the beginning, as well as a taxpayer, a community member of the Kuna School District for the last 20 years or so. I don't reside in Kuna city limits. I reside in Kenton County, but I've appreciated the chance to meet with the city council and meet with the mayor over the last few years. I reviewed the BCA's letter from Jenna England, and I think there's some problems with both not only the tone but also the substance of the letter and some of the legal positions and the demands that are made here. In the first few paragraphs, there seems to be some apparent agreement as to the nature of the problem, and so I think we agree on that. The problem is growth, and the problem is specifically unchecked and unsupported growth. There's also recognition that this problem is not isolated to Kuna alone. After that, I don't think there's too much that I do agree with as far as the perspectives. And in my opinion, in the fourth paragraph, the letter takes a kind of a bad turn. Quote, it says, our members are disturbed by the recent questionably legal board policy of extracting so-called voluntary mitigation fees from developers in exchange for supportive development applications before the Kuna City Council, or more specifically, the aggressive opposition to development applications in the instance that a developer is unable to pay the requested voluntary, quotes, voluntary fee to the school district. So I take some issue with some of that language. It's pretty difficult to understand how a policy of asking for mitigation can be termed as questionably legal. KSD didn't make up the statutory provisions and the ordinances that we rely on for this. They're provided for specifically in the Local Land Use Planning Act, and they're also provided for in Kuna City ordinances. For example, Kuna City ordinance provides that the commission make findings on the availability of public services to accommodate the proposed development. They're also directed to make findings on the public financial capability to provide supporting services to the proposed development. In the purposes of the Local Land Use Planning Act in the statute, and this is Idaho Code section 676502, subsection L, it says this, it says, one of the purposes of the LLUPA is to allow local school districts to participate in the community planning and development process so as to address public school needs and impacts on an ongoing basis. It's difficult for me to understand how that enumerated purpose that's in the statute can ever be accomplished if KSD does as the developers suggest and just kind of sit down and shut up and be quiet. To participate, you have to participate and you have to be involved. And so I don't understand the allegation that it's questionably legal. That doesn't make sense to me at all. It's your right and your duty as board members to participate in the community planning and development process so as to address public school needs and impacts on an ongoing basis. Some could even argue that not following this statutory directive could be termed as maybe a dereliction of your duty as a board member, since that's specifically outlined in the statute. And so each of you have to decide how you feel about that, but it is unquestionably legal for us to participate. Notices are specifically required to be given to agencies and political subdivisions. There's little purpose in providing notice if you're just going to ignore that notice and not participate in the process. Kuna City Council is specifically directed by ordinance that they may require conditions of approval that it deems necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and or prevent undue adverse impacts on surrounding properties. So let me say that again, prevent undue adverse impacts on surrounding properties. School district has no ability to extract anything from anybody, and that language is false and it's incorrect. The school district is allowed to present their case, and they're allowed to explain why they can or cannot serve. To participate in community planning and development process on an ongoing basis. That's what KSD has the ability to do. The relevant commissions and councils involved then have the authority to approve, require conditions to approve, or to deny based on how they view the statute and the ordinances. That's the roles of people. The KSD does not have the ability to do anything other than to present their case and then allow the relevant agencies or commissions or boards to make their decisions. The next paragraph in the BCA letter also creates a false narrative. KSD has never claimed that mitigation solves the growth concerns on its own. That's a silly argument. $3,200 per unit is just a starting point for mitigation, and it's based on a comprehensive study that we commissioned that found the real value. And then, because it's not reasonable to ask for the entire amount, because once these houses become tax-paying members and start paying their fair share, that wouldn't be reasonable to ask them to pay the full amount. So, in the past, the board has decided that 10% is a reasonable amount, because there's a lag time between the time that goes from bare land to the time that it goes to its full assessed value. And so it makes sense to cover that gap a little bit and to take care of that. Without some basis for having a starting point, having some reason for asking for what we were asking for, the board and the school district would have been vulnerable to saying that it was just arbitrary, that we were just coming up with some reason. But no one has ever claimed that the $3,200 in requested mitigation is going to take the place of bonds. It just takes the edge off. It just helps to smooth that over. That's all that it will ever do. It helps the taxpayers of the district know that growth is paying for growth, and that their legitimate concerns are not just being ignored and deliberately overlooked in favor of developer interests. It's interesting to me that when ACHD, as part of a development application, requires a new bike lane or a turn lane or a sidewalk or a stoplight for mitigation, that's just pretty much accepted. Nobody says anything about that. And this isn't any different. KSD should be encouraged to look for creative win-win solutions, and we've done that in the past. Sometimes land donations are appropriate, sometimes a bus might be appropriate, depending on the size of the development. Sometimes the district can work it out to be partners and have our students help build a house, and that's a great thing when that happens. So the $3,200, in my opinion, should always be looked at as a starting place, and there may be reasons for why that should be adjusted, either up or probably not up, because that's your basis, that's your starting place. But there might be reasons to take into consideration some other factors or some other things. The BCA letter also acknowledges that 6511 particular consideration should be given in regards to zoning applications, but then they kind of make the peculiar decision that means that we should just be, the KSD should just be quiet and just not pay attention. I guess I question how particular consideration can ever be given if you're not presenting your case and if you're not discussing what's going on. Another false thing, there's no such thing as a mitigation fee. It doesn't exist. KSD can't assess a fee of any sort. That's a false language. That doesn't exist. There's only mitigation, and it can take a variety of different forms. There's no such thing as a mitigation fee. That doesn't happen. I've gone over, and I think you're aware of 6511 and 6513 and what they say. I'm not going to spend time on that tonight. If the cities and counties choose not to provide for mitigation after being presented with this information, then at that point, that's when legal options by everyone involved have to be decided, and everybody has to make those considerations. But asking for mitigation is not illegal, and it is not extortion. If you define legal as something that's provided for by statute, which is something that's in a dictionary that I looked up today, an action or situation that is legal is allowed or required by law. So it is specifically legal to ask for mitigation because it's specifically allowed by statute. As a KSD taxpayer has some familiarity with the history and development of this process, I urge you to continue to discuss these issues in good faith with developers and to attempt to find win-win solutions where that's possible. I wanted to just briefly touch on their proposal as far as if KSD will just be quiet, then they'll help pass a bond. I think there's some things you need to consider about that. And as a taxpayer, speaking as a taxpayer, I have some negative considerations if that was to be chosen, because it seems to me that you're just passing the buck to the existing taxpayers at that point. I think it would make your job more difficult to try to get support for a bond, because I'm sure you'd welcome their help, and I think if they are willing to help, I think that would be a great thing, and I think that would be something. But if it's on some kind of indecent proposal that we'll just go back to how it was before and we'll just be quiet, I think that's gonna be a negative as far as trying to pass any future bond. Because it looks like you're trading the developer interests for looking out for the taxpayers and looking out for the students. Bonds are gonna be likely needed as long as maintenance of existing buildings and new buildings are gonna be required. I don't believe it's good politics or good policy to accept a proposal that will only provide uncertain results. But we don't know if their help would make the difference anyway. I mean, it's not like it's a for sure thing that if they help, then it'll pass. This BCA proposal just shifts the entire burden to existing taxpayers at best, and at worst, it continues the current unsustainable trajectory of not having adequate learning spaces for the students in the district. So, thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for me.
Thank you, Russ. I think you did a great job of putting that down. Questions for Russ?
Thanks.
Thank you, Russ.
We may call on you, so stay ready. So, we have had a proposal.
Jill, did you have something that you
Well,
wanted
I
to
was just
say?
gonna say, I really don't have much to add because Russ did such a great job.
Yeah.
He did my job for me, but I am happy to answer any questions or provide any additional information about the Land Use Planning Act if any of you have questions about that.
Any questions for Jill?
I would just say, I guess, you're in agreement as a secondary lawyer.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe it'd be helpful if you kind of talked about as far as could they get sued or what format.
Yeah, and I don't wanna get too much into, because that's all kind of unknown, right? So I don't like to give hypotheticals and what might or might not happen, but I think Russ hit a little bit on the head of what the district has done to date is perfectly legal. There's nothing in the statutes that govern the school districts and what your authority and powers and duties are as board members or as a school district to enter into voluntary agreements with anybody, developers or otherwise. There's nothing in the development fee impact law, sorry, that precludes developers and the district from entering into agreements. In fact, there's an Idaho Supreme Court case that talks about they encouraging parties to get together, whether that's a city council, a county, typically the governing boards that are making the decisions on a development application, so a subdivision application or a rezoning application, they are certainly welcome to do that because it benefits both parties. And so what the district has done to date is something that benefits the developers typically, because you're giving kind of your go-ahead for, yeah, we support this, where we wanna work with you, we're willing to find ways to work together. It helps the district because maybe you get a land donation out of it, maybe you get, some fees that you can put into a fund to help with some of your building costs, your facilities and things like that. So there's nothing inherently legal about what the district has done. And I think the other thing too is that, as Russ alluded to, under the Land Use Planning Act, you certainly have the ability to provide input, as you have done, to the Planning and Zoning Commission at the city, to the city council, and I think you've done that. You've provided factual information on, this is what we're looking at, this is what our needs are, compared with what the proposal is. And it's gonna vary by proposal, so maybe a proposal might have a different impact depending on, is it a 500 home subdivision or is it maybe 20 homes? That's gonna be different. And I think your staff has done a really good job of kind of putting all of that information together and getting that to the city for them to consider. And so I think there is, in my mind, kind of a veiled threat of if you don't do what we're asking, there's going to be a lawsuit. And I think it's easy for parties to say that, because of the provisions that might be in the Local Land Use Planning Act, or that might be in the Development Impact Fee Act. The thing that, I don't know, again, I don't know what that lawsuit would look like, right? Because we just don't know the particular facts. So I do know that it is generally the city council that makes the decision on a land use application. Or it might be Ada County or Canyon County, but it's not gonna be the school district. So if a city council, the city of Kuna, for example, were to deny an application based in part on information that the school district provided to it, that lawsuit might look one way. It's hard for me to say. But if they denied it based on something else, and the school district had provided input on it, favorable or unfavorable, that lawsuit is gonna look entirely different. So, I don't like to kind of get ahead of anything on that, but, I think the other thing I thought of as Russ was talking is I think there's other options out there too, as opposed to, their proposal is we'll help you, with your bond kind of marketing, if you stop doing what you're doing. Another option might be, there's gotta be a legislative solution out there somewhere. We, Russ and I, with some of the other folks and the CUNA folks, have been working on, last year we worked on some proposed legislation, didn't go anywhere. But there's other ways that, that maybe there's something that's palatable to people, and legislation can be hard to get passed. But I think if you have the right people working on it, in the right climate at the right time, that might be something else. And, without knowing what would be palatable to them, it's hard to say, but I think it's worth an ask of, is there any legislative proposal that, that we could work on? Probably not for this year because we're too far down the line, I think, on that, as we kind of discovered last year when we worked on this. But anyway, I guess those are some of my thoughts. I won't go on too long. So if you have any questions.
I do have a little question. So what I hear from the developers are, so if I give you something, then you're gonna okay it. But if I don't give you something, you're not gonna okay it. Do they have kind of a leg to stand on that, when they're saying that as a developer, and if that was to go to court? Are they gonna be able to say, wait, this person gave them 10 acres, so they said yes to this person, even though that division or subdivision is just like our subdivision. Yet this person over here, we said, no, we're not gonna give you anything, and you said no. Do we have a chance then legally? Can we still do what we're doing, I guess is what I'm asking.
I think so, because I think still you have the city council making that decision. So
Okay.
it's not the school district making any decision.
So then they can't come after us and say, wait, you guys said this because it is, gotcha. And so-
We're deemed a critical agency by the city, and so we're weighing in on that as a critical agency, and they take the information from us and make the decision.
So then we don't have anything to do with that, so,
So they're the
the-
ones that are in the tricky spot,
yeah,
not the school district.
not the school district, okay. That answers my question,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, because as Russ said, the city typically sends out a notice to other public agencies, so the school district generally gets a notice from them. And why would the city send out that notice to you if it didn't expect you to respond in some way? Now, practically there might not be a reason for you to respond, and, I've worked with cities before, and there might be an agency that's, some irrigation district, that's maybe a bad example, they usually respond, but, maybe there's another public, kind of smaller entity, like, we're not gonna respond, but the whole purpose is to get your input so that their governing body or their planning and zoning commission has the ability to make an informed decision on that particular development.
So the city council makes that decision for us, and then we get whatever is given, type of thing.
Right, yeah, they may attach.
So that doesn't affect us, cause that's kind of what I read in that letter a little bit somewhere, that they were looking at like, well, how does this happen? But then that's not up to us, that's up to the city,
Yeah, the
P&Z.
city, the planning and zoning commission or the city
Sorry.
council makes the decisions on those development applications. And so, again, it's hard for me to say without specific facts,
Right.
but, if there was a decision that the city council made based on input that the school district had
gave,
provided, which is typically gonna be a denial, that would lawsuit, right? That's
Right.
typically how it happens. Then I guess it would be a question of, is there any way to bring the school district into that?
Okay.
I don't see it, but again, I don't know what those facts would be. So generally, it's those lawsuits, and they're very specifically defined in the Land Use Planning Act as to the timing and how they have to proceed and everything, and so it's very hard to bring a third party like the school district into.
Yeah, because I get the impression from them, the developers, that we might sue you, but they can't, because we're not the ones doing it, right? Or can they?
They can sue.
They can sue
They can-
anyone they want.
They
can sue whoever they want?
Yeah, they can
We've
sue,
been
and, you
doing
know,
this,
and,
but we've been
and,
doing this for 4 years,
Yeah.
so,
yeah,
and we haven't gotten sued,
right.
and the city hasn't gotten sued.
Okay.
Well,
There's
they
always
haven't denied anything based on the schools, that's why.
There's been a few.
No, Chris said nothing's been denied because of the schools, it's all been sewers.
Oh, really?
Because they're not allowed to, like she said, it's actually illegal, they're not allowed to deny anything because of maintenance.
So it's just been sewers, it hasn't been anything that we've said as a school district?
I mean, it helps, but no, it's unlawful for city council
Okay.
to do that, they're not allowed to.
Any other questions or comments? or-
I guess I'm just wondering if you know if that's actually true, that they can't deny a development based on information that's provided by the school district. I feel like it has to be not true, I don't know.
We're a critical agency.
Right,
What
so
does that mean?
if the needs of the school district can't handle the development, wouldn't they be able to deny an application based on that? Or, I mean, I'm sure it's trickier than that, but.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, part of what goes into any city council decision, just as it goes to, I think, whatever decisions you might make about anything, is they have to look, they are, kind of, restricted, maybe is the right word, by the law to look at the whole development and the whole impact. So they can't necessarily just look at what the impact to the district would be. They have to look at it as a whole. And if it generally comports with what is in the city code, then generally they have to approve that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jill, thank you for coming all the way out here, appreciate it.
Thank you.
What is this motion supposed to look like right now?
Do we have to make a decision on anything?
We don't have to,
We
but
don't have to,
I
but
think
a response to the letter
the
would be
proposal that they're giving us.
possibility.
Can we just say no?
I
Yeah.
mean, if we choose not to respond, isn't
That's a
that
response.
basically a response?
Mhm.
Cause I feel that too, not responding at all.
Yep.
I don't really have anything to say about the letter.
I personally, I say no. I mean,
I would vote for no response.
no response?
I mean, I'm no and no response, it's the same
I'm
thing.
both, because it's the same thing, and I don't know, do we need to send a stronger message as in like, no, this is not what we want?
We
mean,
could
What does a
certainly
no
craft
response
something
mean
and
to
bring
you?
it back to you at our next meeting.
Like a no response to me means what?
No.
Like, what are we gonna say? We're not interested? No, thank you?
I mean, we appreciate the
Thanks
letter,
for the
but no.
information. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like, I guess I
Well-
don't really know what to say. Like, thanks, basically, you sent us a letter and I don't think it necessarily requires
Well,
a response.
when we were in the meeting
They
with the
did
mayor,
want us to respond.
they did want a response. They said, we will send you a proposal. I assume this is the proposal
That's
they're
the
sending
proposal.
us.
Okay.
And then therefore, I feel like in good faith, we have to say either yes or no. That was kind of the impression I got. But when you say no, no response, to me, that's a no too, so
Well,
I
like, I'm
guess.
looking at the
They
letter.
may take it as we haven't decided yet either, and I really don't wanna give them that open-ended.
I think we better just make a motion.
Yes, yeah. Cause
I'm
it seems
about-
open-ended if we don't respond, like, oh, we're thinking about it, and we're not.
But what is the request in the letter? I'm looking for.
The
one.
request is that they would help us with the bond, if we would stop the mitigation, or asking and testifying against the developers, is my impression.
I make a motion that we deny the proposal from BCA.
You know, and I just wanna say, I've talked to some community members about this, and and I kinda go along with what Russ said, as a taxpayer in this community, I do not want to have the developers telling me what to do, how to do, whatever to do. And so because of that, I think that it's easy for me to say no. Being a member of the community, these developers don't live here, nor do they pay the taxes here. And I guess I just feel that we need to send a no message. That's my personal feeling.
I agree.
Okay, so I need a proposal then. Do you gonna make
I
a
just made a
motion?
motion.
Do you have a second?
Do we have to say what's in the letter, or can
We
you
can
figure
put
that
something
out?
together and have you approve it at our next,
A letter and then send it to them?
or I could work with the chairman and vice chairman to get it done with some help from our attorney.
Attorneys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do I
So
have it?
their recommendation is that the board adopt a policy of continuing to share with city decision makers all this stuff, and so I guess if we're gonna say, no, we're not gonna adopt this policy, is basically what we're saying.
I
We're
don't
not
think
accepting
we need
the
a
proposal.
policy.
No.
Right, so,
It's a
I mean, by
proportion.
not adopting the policy, we just say, we're not gonna do that?
We're not
saying
gonna do
no.
any of it.
Yeah.
Do you wanna restate your motion, JD?
Nope.
Okay. Do I have a second? 'Cause I didn't hear the motion, I'm just saying.
I made a
second.
motion that we deny the proposal from BC.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor, Kirsty,
I.
Michael,
Aye.
JD,
Aye.
Hillary. Aye for me too. All right. Moving right along, the communication expectations.
Would you do it?
Yes, sorry.
Would you, you bet.
Yes.
Trustees, we're excited to be here tonight to report out to you on one of the pillars in our strategic plan and with an action item for you. So these are the values and our mission from the plan, just a reminder of how we focus our work in the district. And next one. And then our particular pillar that we're talking from tonight is strong relationships. And one of the projects under it has to do with parent-teacher relationships. So we've updated the board in the past about that we were forming a committee of parents. Kevin and I got to work with them, guide them through the process, nearly a year-long process, to develop a couple of things. And you see those there, expectations on two-way communications, identify if there's a tool that can better help our parents and teachers communicate. And we started last spring, and we reviewed some metrics and baseline data with you all in October, the survey of parents in the district.
So tonight, for the board, we're gonna be asking you to adopt some district-wide communication expectations, which we'll share that with you. And then the second part is to share with you the tool that the district has adopted as our two-way communication tool and give you some information about that. So, just a brief review. We followed our interest-based process for this. That's why it's taking so long, but it's such a great process because it gives everybody an opportunity to be a part of it. One of the first things we did was to define our problem, which is up here. I won't read it to you unless you want me to, but from there, we created our driving question. And so everything we did was to this point, how can we effectively communicate between districts, school teachers, and families across all grade levels and demographics in a common platform? As a result of all that work over months and months, our two solutions that we came out with was that we needed a common district set of expectations for communication, and we needed a two-way communication tool that would meet those expectations and make it more effective for us. So, on the next slide then.
Introduce our committee members, I forgot.
Oh, we didn't introduce it, did we? Well, we'll do that here. So, we had 22-ish, I can't remember exactly how many people on this task force, and these are the remaining strong ones. We wore them down a little bit. So this is Sydney Gianelli is a parent in our district and has been a stalwart with the committee. She's been on both tasks, both the expectation side of it and the tool. Dave Beamer, of course, our high school principal, and Michelle Tripp, our principal at Ross. So, just real quickly, specifically on the district expectations, our committee created a draft of what we wanted to do. That we based that off of our interests and the concerns and the stand. We went through that whole process. After we drafted this, we actually sent this communication out, and on the previous slide where it has our process, if you wanna go in and see the whole work, there's a document where we send out the draft of our expectations to every single school's leadership team and parent advisory committees. We took it to the superintendent's parent advisory committee, we took it to the cabinet meeting, we took it to the district admin team meeting, and got feedback from literally over 200 individuals on those draft expectations. Compiled it all together, and then we met again as a team to go through all that feedback. And so and I forgot, district negotiations team looked at it as well. So all that work, all those people's input led us to this next step, which Michelle Tripp and Dave Beamer are gonna share with us. If you'll go to that next slide. This is the actual.
So, we came up with some expectations, some district expectations. So parents and guardians of students enrolled in the school district can expect the following, and we're gonna go back and forth, excuse me, together. Our communications will come through the district adopted communication tools. That's the one we just adopted.
That was kind of important, especially at elementary, because there's like 14 different platforms that are getting used. And so it'll be nice to have one platform that everyone's using so that parents can just have one stop shop for everything.
And you'll hear in a minute about that tool. It really does everything that we needed to do.
So is Parent Square an app?
Yes, Sam.
Tell me more.
We will provide weekly student learning updates. Michelle's kind of my color person, so.
Right. We talked a lot about that one, just because it looks different at secondary and elementary, so that was a big one that we got a lot of parent feedback from, and teacher feedback, but what we decided that looked like for weekly learning updates would be, for secondary, Schoology grades sync no later than Friday. But a lot of elementaries aren't using Schoology, and so for elementary, we said we wanted parents to know what students are learning, and that they'll have direct communication.
That should have been the bullet point that I would have missed.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but what students are learning each week, so that could look like a teacher newsletter, it could look like, it could look like a lot of things at elementary, but secondary, it would look like synced grades that parents can count on.
In secondary, we'll,
So this is now the next bullet point. This is the next expectation.
This one right here should be right there.
Our slide
communication for
transition.
teachers when a student is not making adequate progress in learning. So at secondary, we talked about a D or lower, we would be communicating with parents, which is best practice, what we're trying to do right now at the high school and the secondaries.
And then elementary being standards-based grading, K-3 right now, we would communicate if a student is consistently below standards over time. Since they're not earning credits in elementary, like we talked about what overtime means, and that kind of depends a little bit, but that we would have a direct communication from the teacher if your student's not progressing, so.
I want to interject, because this is one of the areas where we got the most feedback on. And particularly on the traditional grading scale, some parents were like, a D is way too late, which I don't disagree with necessarily. But for some students, a C might be a good grade, and for some parents, a B may not be a good grade. And so we wanted to just set, this is the minimum, if there's a D or lower, there will be a direct communication to the parent. But obviously, we want parents to communicate with teachers, and this is the expectation for me and my child. So that, it doesn't mean that we have to wait until they have a D to communicate. That just means if there's a D or lower, it will definitely happen, so.
What about if like the student never turns in work? When is the certain point that a teacher?
That would just be, again, best practice by the teacher to contact the parent.
So is that a communication with the teacher so they understand that that's unclear?
And quickly, when you don't turn in the work, the grade goes down.
Yeah.
It doesn't take very
I
many.
had one parent, the teacher never communicated, and so their student failed. So I'm just trying to understand the expectation of the teacher in high school to reach out and say, hey, your kid's not turning in work.
Exactly.
Let's work together.
And then that's also the Schoology update too, because in the Schoology update, you'll see them missing work. Is that what you were gonna say?
Sometimes parents aren't good, I check them every week. Not
We're hoping it's a partnership. with the
Other
parent.
I get that.
parents are not good with that.
And if it's synced, then, and it's reliable, then it's helpful.
And figure that way, like, when we talked about these two as a pair of, expectations, they would work together. So there's the proactive, like, every week, you're gonna have an update of some kind about what's happening. And then also, if your kid particularly isn't doing well, you will get a direct contact from the teacher. We felt like the combination of those two will keep surprises from happening for parents, for students. and especially at secondary where it's a question of earning credits and maybe not being on track to graduate, like it becomes really important that communication comes early, which is
Exactly.
what these two together, we think, help solve that problem. That was one of the interest-based bargaining's greatest desires, was to fix that part of the problem. You're like,
The next one was communication with a parent when students have any disciplinary contact off, so whenever they see an administrator, a counselor, or social worker, that the parents are notified, which is also best practice, and I think we're pretty good at that, so.
One of the cool parts about all the feedback too is that on a lot of these, the feedback was, we already are doing this. So that was cool to hear. Obviously, it could be better in some areas too, but.
Communication response to parents was done within 2 days. Rob and I tell our teachers that that's the bottom, but best practice is within 24 hours. The longer you wait, the more frustrated people get.
and that was
so.
an interesting one too, because we debated like 48 hours or 24 hours, and we just decided 2 school days made sense. Because then if it's like right before Christmas break, someone wouldn't be expected to respond on Christmas break, but the parent would know that within 2 school days, they will get a response.
And also with an AB schedule, that way,
You're seeing
because it's generally gonna be within 24 hours, but because of the AB schedule, it might be a 2-day return. So we want, again, that's the minimum, but the best practice is within the 24
And in fact, most of our teachers gave feedback that they're like, no, 1 day, but but then parents were like, no, 2 days just in case, you know, so that was kind of the bulk of the feedback, was parents wanting 2 days, teachers wanting, being like, no, it's pretty much 1 day, but, so we landed on 2 days, and if it's sooner, great,
You go take that one.
I will.
Email them.
Email communication will include a student name except in mass emails, and a signature line that identifies the staff member and class grade role. So that if you get an email that says, your student has a spelling test tomorrow, help them study, and you're like, which one of my 5 kids is that? Like, you'll know, so like a mass email might not say the student name, but for sure it would identify the staff member and the class grade or role, so at least you would know which kid we're talking about. You know? And if it's a personal email, obviously it would have the student's name in it.
And Parent Square will help us with that, actually, very nicely.
School updates, newsletters, group emails, etc. I noticed you didn't put my videos on there. Much, but it's okay. We send out at least twice a month, and then district updates will be sent out weekly.
And those two, there was so much feedback, but it was all over the place. Some people were like, well, that's too much, once every week is too much, and some people, I like it once a week, but one of the cool things that you're gonna hear in just a minute in Parent Square, parents will have a lot more control on how they receive the information, how often. So we felt like leaving that as the expectation was good, and then parents now have some control over how and when they receive that, so.
And how is this different than what are we doing a weekly district update right now?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the current practice.
Yeah.
And many of the schools do a weekly update, but some of the schools are only doing it twice a month, so we felt like at least twice a month minimum would be good. So.
Questions?
Nope, keep going.
Okay.
All right.
So we wanted to have the expectations in partnership with the communication tool. So on the next slide, our committee really drilled down into the survey data from parents, because we always ask them, how can we do better, how can we do better? And then we surveyed teachers about what features do you want from a tool, and you can see some of the ones that popped up as their concerns. And our committee did a great job of taking those interests, those concerns. I'm gonna pass it over to our amazing parent who went to all our product demonstrations, asked great questions, represented parents really well. So here you go.
All right. So again, I'm Sydney. I am a parent to 3 Reed Cheetahs, 1st grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. Yeah, Mr. Gifford's a celebrity in our house. I'm also a PTO board member at Reed, and I am a former music teacher at an elementary school as well. So I've got a little bit of experience in all of them. Okay, yeah, all right. So our committee reviewed 5 products against the standards. We had a rubric of a bunch of things that we rated at 0 to 3 for they didn't do it at all, to they exceed expectations, had a bunch of other like, it'd be really cool if they also did this. And then at the end of that, we chose 2 that were chosen for our teachers to review. I know that you guys had, I guess I'd say it down here. Yeah. On January 24th, representatives from both of those companies met with 63 teachers and staff. We got a lot of feedback, and then we came together again for one final committee meeting. Both companies also provided a sandbox for our district tech team to evaluate the product, so they got to play around. They gave us that feedback as well at our final committee meeting. And the #1 ranked product was Parent Square. And I personally am really excited. After I heard the demo, I went to my husband afterwards. I was like, I really hope we choose Parent Square. I was so excited. And there's fun swag for you guys. I've been asked to share some of my favorite things about Parent Square. So I have a little list. Some of the things, both on the parent side and PTO side, I'm really excited that we can do forms, like for permission slips within Parent Square, events, flyers. You can do Sign Up Genius. All of that sign up can happen within Parent Square. We don't have to have links to Sign Up Genius. For PTO signups and class parties, they can show grades, and so one of the things, like in our expectations, we can set a trigger if a grade drops below a certain grade to notify you. You can also set weekly auto grading alerts as well. Another thing that I'm really excited about, I know it's very important, especially at Reed, where we have over 20 languages at our school, it translates automatically into over 100 languages, which is huge. I know my kids who aren't even in the dual language program at Reed, they have classmates. 2 years ago, my daughter had a classmate, he spoke 3 languages. She was so excited she came home. English was not one of them. But he had a classmate who spoke Russian. He also spoke Russian, so they communicated through that. Teacher used an app on her phone. It was really neat, and our school really celebrates that. So I think it's really awesome that we can translate into over 100 different languages. There's a ton of admin oversight. It's very secure. I don't personally have experience in cybersecurity, but I've been told this, that it's very secure. Another thing that was important to me, even though I'm not a teacher, is you can set office hours within the app, so the teacher can set the hours they are out of office, and then we as parents can see that, and I believe it can be set the other way as well.
Yeah, it has
So
some great parent features, so you can log on as a parent and say, yes, I want every notification the minute it's sent, or you can say, I want a daily digest of all the messages, or I want a weekly digest. So if you get too much communication, then you can get it all in one bundle and sort through it. But we still have the power, should a crisis occur, to override those preferences to get messages out to families. You can choose to get it in the app, you can choose to get it as a text, you can choose to get it as an email, or all 3. So it was created by parents for parents.
And it's an opt-out program, so everybody is automatically, even if they haven't downloaded the app, because we've also heard from a lot of families, they're not comfortable or they don't do apps necessarily for communication. They will automatically be put into the system in some tech way to get the emails and text. It's not my world, but I have been told by our tech team.
It will come to a parent as a text or an email or both, whether they have the app or not.
Yes. Another thing that I love protecting our teachers is it comes with a private phone number for communication. So they're not giving out their cell phone number to the families. I don't know if we've had issues, but to me, even though I'm just a parent, I want our teachers to stay safe and not be giving out their personal phone numbers. It also transcribes and logs phone calls, which I know that was a really neat feature for our teachers, so that they can keep track of the conversations they've had with parents. There's tons of analytics on how and if families are seeing the messages. So are they getting the message in the first place? Are they seeing it, are they reading it in email? Are they seeing it in text? Are they seeing it in the app? So that, I know a lot of times I will talk to my students' teachers, and they're like, only a quarter of my teachers are actually looking at my Class Dojo responses. Like, they're not logging in. And so now the teachers can actually see who's responding and how are they seeing it. And then one last thing that was really important to me, so I love Dojo. Some of my kids' teachers use it. They talked about how different kids or grades are using different apps and stuff. I have kids at one school and all of my teachers have different communication methods at the moment. Love them all, they're all great, it's confusing, even though we're at one school. But I love Dojo. My one downside with it was there's ads for parents. Teachers don't necessarily see that. It's constantly trying to upsell me something, and so it was important for me to not have it because I've heard other parents say, I don't want to go in there because it's trying to make me buy something. It's confusing, and I could see how if English isn't your first language and it was coming up in English, they're going to be like, oh, I can't use this, I have to pay. Parent Square is not going to try and sell us parents anything. So, yeah, those are my things.
Yeah. And the other super great thing about it is it's within our budget. So we are swapping out our Blackboard suite of products to email, text, mobile app, all of that to this system. And so, yes, so our next steps are planning training support for our teachers, for our school staff, and for our coaches. Our athletic coaches will be asked to use this system as well. So it'll be great that they'll have a phone number and a way to text and communicate with parents and their players. And then we are investigating, so we went to, many apps for communication to one, that perhaps we can go from many apps for online payment to one that is embedded in Parent Square. So we have our bookkeepers meeting and investigating how that looks. So it's one-stop shopping for our parents and for our staff.
Yeah, so to wrap it all up, first of all, are there any questions?
No, but I think you should be a rep for parents. Oh my gosh, I'm like, let's get that.
Trustee Lowe.
So what will this replace? I guess we'll still be using Schoology. What about like Power School?
Yeah, so this does not replace that, because Power School is our student information system. It's SIS, I just could only think of SIS.
So Tyler SIS?
So Power School replaced Tyler
Replace
SIS.
that.
And Schoology is our student learning management system, so it's our
Grading
LMS,
and planning.
and it has our grade book in it, yeah, so.
And so then what about, like emails from like the career people? Like, say like Mrs. Bauer wants to send
The
something about.
newsletter she puts out.
Well, just the text.
She can go through
like,
this.
I get lots of texts is what I'm saying. So
She
I'm
will be
just
able to go
wondering.
through this as well.
So then I can choose whether I want to look at it on the app or I can look at it as a text if I
Yes.
decide to get that notification.
And on the app, it's similar to a social media structure, so that you see the post coming up.
Okay.
And teachers can turn on or off commenting, depending on what it is, or they can comment directly to a parent. So there's a lot of really cool features, but teachers still have, our Gmail accounts are still there, but a teacher can just go into Parent Square and it will send the email through, it'll come as a Gmail to them or through the app they'll see.
Sure.
So we'll replace Blooms, Remind, Band, Dojo,
All
on
of
and
them.
on and on.
So
Sign
I've
up
got a lot of them
Genius.
on my phone. Yeah.
Yes, you do. And our current district app would also go in, this would take the place of it.
Oh, okay.
So like, what about
And
a
the
teacher?
website is also.
What about a teacher that communicates through Schoology? Would that replace that communication?
Not really, because that's the learning management system, so in terms of like lessons that are going on in the class, that still could come through Schoology, but I don't know do teachers send messages? They don't really send messages through Schoology.
One teacher did, but
Oh,
because
okay.
of Power School and Schoology, I don't even log into Schoology, so I can't communicate with her because, she responded to my email, it just took a minute.
I think that could be part of our training, is that and that's part of the expectation, we want them to go through this tool, because then parents just know.
Right.
Communication's gonna come through this tool.
Cause she said Schoology and I was like, well, I'm not using it. I look at Schoology on Fridays, but I'm not logging in there anymore.
And this doesn't necessarily affect you guys as much, but like on the teachers' side, I've been told that it's gonna be like a very robust training.
Yes.
And we have a local rep who lives in Boise.
Yep.
That works for
Kara, that's her name.
Parent Square as well. Like when we had our committee meeting, we had a question, walked out, they called her, and she answered her question right then and there. Tons and tons of customer service.
So through training, would you possibly tell teachers not to use Schoology and try to use email form or Parent Square?
We probably want to try to get to Parent Square, but some parents are comfortable with the communication through Schoology, so I don't
They can see the actual lesson.
They could, yeah,
And
use
assignments.
communication right to the
It
assignment.
depends on what they're doing from school,
Right.
really, right? If it's just a communication about what's happening in class or the grades or that kind of thing, it could use the parent square, but if it's specific to that lesson,
Yeah, I think they attach it to the lesson, so it's, the information's right there with the lesson, so it's simpler for them to figure it out. So,
but the cool thing is a parent could always reply back through parent square, asking for clarification. So, yeah. All right, well, we're excited, the parent square tool, we've got that set up, ready to go in terms of training in that. What we need from you, hopefully, is if you have any questions about the expectations, we would love a action from you to adopt that district set of communication expectations.
I move that we adopt the Kuna School District Communication Expectations and Parent Square.
I second. Exciting.
All in favor, Kirsty? Michael? JD?
Aye.
Hillary? And I'm an aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. All right, Superintendent Johnson and Civil Fellow.
Chairman and trustees, would you like to stand for a minute since you've been sitting for a couple
This
of
is a
hours? If you
long
wanna stand,
meeting.
please do. I am, Elmira and I are gonna talk to you tonight, about our follow-up to the work that we did during our work session. So, after hearing some feedback from, I think almost all of you at one point, in time, we kind of retooled the focus of this work, in the recommendations based on the work session and input from you. So, for possible action tonight, we still have one more month if we want to run an election in May. These are the questions that we're hoping to answer tonight. And then at a later time, answer the question about learning spaces. So I always put our values and beliefs and all of that, because that is how we make our decisions. It's based in that. And I'm gonna give a quick history lesson. Seems like that's my role a lot of times in the district, is that. In 2016, the board at the time worked to update the capital plan, the financial plan that went with that, and also what do we need to do to make sure we have appropriate learning spaces for our children. So at the time, the goal was to have a consistent tax rate. Michael Keith talked about this at our work session. The rate was set kind of at $5. We didn't want to go higher than that. And that we wanted flexibility to add and adjust other levies as we needed it. Because at the time, we had a study done about potential growth coming. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it's been almost 10 years ago. We wanted stability for the district so that we could meet the needs of our capital projects, repair and potentially build new, and also take care of some of the educational needs and safety needs in the district. And that the plan was to use our tax base growth to accelerate any debt repayment. So any debt we took out, that we were gonna try and pay it off as quickly as we could. This was shared by Michael Keith, who is the district's financial advisor. And he put together kind of like a history. You can see the story of up and down, right? And then the plan really being put into place and working. And then this is the amount that we have levied to pay our debt yearly. This is also another slide from our work session that shows the other piece of the plan working, which about over $6.5 million in savings to the plan, or to our, with interest costs by paying off some of our debt early. This is a slide that I've updated that was originally a part of our, was initiated in 2016. So we knew we had some building projects that needed to get completed, and we also had some learning and safety needs. And so the plan that was set in place, and there's a link in the presentation to that 10-year spreadsheet. We had a 10-year look with low, medium, high growth and what we would need as a district. As you all know, what happened is the global pandemic So we didn't do what we had planned, which was to run a bond. But we did run a levy to keep those things in place that our community said was important. Fast forward to after the pandemic, everything kind of got rolled around a little bit. And so we seated a group of great people from the community and some of our awesome employees, and we updated that original plan that we built in 2016. And there's a link to that that shows all of the pieces that were suggested over time for the next year, the next 10 years. Fast forward from that to last March when the bond didn't meet the supermajority. But all along, we've kind of had every 2 years a levy. So to keep those items in place that we said was important. And then obviously we talked about this last year, we didn't run a levy and we used the savings that we had incurred to cover the costs that had been being paid for out of the supplemental levy. So we have two kind of questions, like what do we do to go into the next school year prepared? So this is again a summary of what I just said, what we did and why we are where we are tonight. And then I'm recommending that you can do whatever you want as a board, but in talking to lots of people and getting input, which is our process, that we would discuss tonight a May 21st election to continue those operational needs, the learning needs and the safety needs, with some options that we'll share with you tonight. You know, this image up here looks kind of messy. Kevin Gifford and his excellent technical skills and logic put together all of your information and kind of through a mathematical equation, what would be kind of the first and second approaches, or first and second voting, I guess, if we were to do that tonight, which we may. And that, so do something about levy for learning and wait to run a bond election for additional learning spaces at an election to be determined for these reasons. I don't think we agree about what that next election should be, and you said you want more input. This would give us some time to do that. It would give us time to get a citizen-run campaign together. And it also gives us some time to see, you know, Governor Little talked about having some facility funds. We don't know what that is yet. We've heard all sorts of things, but that would give us some time to kind of see how that lands, hopefully this year. So these are some options that are based on the information we gathered at our work session. And we're proposing that we renew the levy, and this is a picture from way back, and we've just continued to keep it rolling. So we would continue that, and then what Brian and I worked on is to take, you remember that big list of things that was overwhelming, like all the fire alarms, all of the roofs, all of that. And we said, okay, if we ran a bond in a couple of years, and we decided to run a levy and add this to it, what would we need to do in the next 2 years? In other words, we've said, if the Hubbard Annex roof doesn't get replaced in 2 years, we may not be able to use the Hubbard Annex anymore because it will not be safe for kids to be in that school. So that's kind of our determination with all the laundry list of things, because what we showed you during the work session was just the tip of the iceberg. There's a big long list of things that we need to repair and replace. We talked about these schools don't have a functioning fire alarm system. It's unreliable. We need to have those things fixed. And then HVAC. We all talked about that during our work session. The KHS, we change, you know, heating and air conditioning depending on the day to circulate it. And then obviously technology, and we put these items on here because there's, and I don't even know the language here, but I know that our internet won't work if we don't upgrade these pieces of equipment. which means students will not have access to the curriculum materials that they need in order to learn, which means parents won't have the communication that they need, that we just talked about. And then the other things that were on that list, we said, you know what, we can wait for these things. These are critical, but they're not like, we're gonna close down the school if our parking lots aren't sealed, right? So that, we put a number to those things in reviewing. And the buses we added because we have things that are at end of life. And we have more kids that we're picking up as the community grows. So we put some options in place. And I didn't mean to use the tiered system of support colors, but I just did it. So we
That's
have,
our proficient.
yeah, I think that I must have internally thought that. Halvesies was the number one option that we provided you, which is in there. And that would be to run a supplemental levy for $2.5 million for 2 years, which has kind of been what we've been doing. And we would use some of our fund balance to cover some of those other costs. And Elmira is going to talk a little bit about some other things we're doing to reduce some of our expenses. What that $2.5 million does is it keeps those resources that we've had in place over the last couple of years in place. If you add the green and those critical maintenance items that were on the list prior, so we put a total to that. So that's one option. Another option would be, and Elmira even has a third one she's going to talk about, I think. The second highest rated option was to cut $2.5 million and run a supplemental levy for $2.5 million, which would keep our fund balance. Both of these keep our fund balance at that level that our rating agency wants to keep us at, so we can keep our great rating. So this would be yellow and red. That's what we've kind of put in front of you as a different way to think about it tonight. So I'm going to turn this over to the money lady, Elmira. She's going to explain it.
So it's a lot of information for today.
It's a lot.
Hang in there, but this is a big picture of the budget of what the life of the district could look like with the green option, which got a nickname Hubs, you know. So, for example, I'm going to talk about past, present, and future. Near future and near from now. So the past, kind of going, just summarizing what happened. So if you focus more on colors versus numbers, so I'm going to talk about general funds and ESSER federal funds. And the green bar is the revenue, the money that come in, and the peach bar, at least it looks peach to me, so these are operations, expenses. So in a perfect world, those bars would be the same, because if you receive $5, you can only spend $5, hopefully $4, so you can put some in savings. And that was a good year. It was a 2022-23 year. As you can see, the green bar is longer than the peach bar because, first of all, the district was still utilizing the second year of the supplemental levy, and then the district was receiving lots and lots of mini grants from the federal government. I don't know if you remember governor's distributions, stipends, cover substitutes, operations, learning management system. So 100,000 here, 100,000 there, 500,000 there, it all add up. And the decision at that time was, instead of going and buying something new or adding expenses, why don't we use federal funds instead of general funds? Because those are short-term funds. And we could use, so as a result, we will have savings and we will put it in our fund balance. So we could reuse it again in a year. And the methodology was, the federal funds that were short-term, 6 months, 5 months, 1 year, but once you put in the savings, you know, the general fund could stay with the district as long as it's needed. So that is why the fund balance was at 22% for the school year of 2022-23, and then we're shifting to the current school year, And the strategy was at that time, as you can see, we're starting with the beginning balance. This is the year where it's backwards, right? So the green bar is smaller than the peach bar because there was no supplemental levy, and but the expenses are still happening. And the decision was to use the savings to cover the gap instead of running for supplemental levy. And as you notice here, there's also another thing going on, which is a completely separate thing, is ESSER, expenses and revenue. And as you can see, they're neutral for both years. There's no effect, money in, money out, self-funded program. So this is how the estimate, you would think so by now we should know the actual revenue, but we do not. The final payment comes to us after the school year end in August. So this is just the estimated fund balance. Hopefully it's gonna be at least 15 or higher. We'll know for sure after the audit, but that's the goal. And now moving into the future, the school year that is around the corner. Now we're facing, you know, two situations. The supplemental levy and also the operations that were covered by supplemental levy or by savings here. And as you can see, the federal revenue is no longer available here, but we still have operations. So with the green option, where, and I'm only talking about supplemental levy right now to address learning, not just facilities. Let's say with the option, if the district runs for supplemental levy, then the expenses, the operations that were used to be covered by either supplemental levy or savings, so they should fit, the revenue should fit the expenses. So that situation should be taken care of. But now we have that additional $2.5 million worth of operations that used to be covered by ESSER funds. And there is a reason why I put the methodology over the course of 1 or 2 years, because it takes time. So, and with any, whether it's a corporation or nonprofit organization, if you face some financial decisions, you have to restructure the budget. And it takes time. And the first step was usually to review the operations behind the scene. I don't know, you probably have heard it could be a vertical integration. For example, you know, if it's too expensive to go and buy groceries or produce, maybe you should grow your own in your backyard, you know, or outsourcing. If it costs too much to grow produce in your backyard, maybe you should go and buy it. So with that, the methodology here, we'll need some time to restructure budget by brainstorming of possibilities of outsourcing services, and this is where I was talking vertical integration. Maybe there's some services that could be in-house, a hybrid self-insurance, compensation insurance, or health insurance. Based on our research and conversation with our current consultants, there could be huge savings in there. It's just a matter of getting in there, because you have to have some money to buy it first with the self-insurance plans. And then there's some promises from the state, and they look actually sound pretty realistic to me. So there could be a one-time supplemental payment from the state, and I will link some information to the webinars in my next presentation when I'm gonna start talking about the budget. But there could be a one-time supplemental payment that could go up to $2 million that we could receive in August.
Myra, is that the legislature they're trying to do right now? Is that what we're looking for?
In addition.
In addition to what they did last year?
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Based on the communication from the superintendent of public instruction,
Right.
we cannot switch to the enrollment. There is a big no there.
Okay.
However, there could be a temporary rule, because there's some access of funds, where they could say, if we would have funded them based on the enrollment, we
Right.
would have given them $2 million more. We are asking for permission to give it to them at least once in August. And the goal is hopefully to make it permanent. But at least it should help us this
So there's lots of webinars and communications, so I feel positive about
Okay,
that. Looks
so
like
that
there's
might,
some,
okay.
like, temporary rule. So that can help as well. And then if all the options are not feasible, there is still 1 year, we can still utilize savings as a fallback plan. And in the meantime, I mean, restructuring budget means restructuring budget. We can start initiating a gradual budget restructuring and preparing for the years, and the goal is to fit in whether the green bar and the peach bar match where all our operations fit in with the revenue that we have at that time. So hopefully the brainstorming here will help with this situation. So the goal to keep it at least at 9%, you know, and or higher,
Right.
depending on the situation.
Don't wanna go below 9%.
So this is the plan, or a picture of what it could look like. I can prepare different scenarios. And now, sorry, more numbers. Unfortunately, Michael Keith couldn't attend today, so he had prior commitments, but he helped us putting the slide together. And we walked through every single number, kind of switching gears. We talked about fund balance and money because, you know, we have our stakeholders, employees and students, but we also, our stakeholders are the community. And what would that mean for them, for taxpayers? And so before I go into the details, the scenarios could go on and on and on, but we kind of picked the 2 scenarios of what it could look like. And again, past, no, this is actually present, and what the future could look like. So currently, as you can see, the tax rate is 123 or 1.24 if you round it. This is because the district did not run for supplemental levy, and the initial decision was to levy $8.2 million to pay for our interest and principal. We levied a bit more so we could have some money for defeasance. And the state helped us with $2 million, so when we went to the counties, we said, could you please collect $6 million? So there was a huge help from the state, and that dropped the tax rate down. And there's a disclosure from Michael Keith and Ada counties that the tax rate is being estimated based on the current taxable value as of today. So the overall, if things change over here, then the tax rate will change over here. So very, very rough estimates, because nobody really can predict the tax rate other than county representatives. So they do not like when we talk about tax rates until the market value is available. So there's a disclosure, but it should be very close, because it looks like, you know, the real estate market is being semi-stable right now. So looking at the future, let's say, kind of put in a number. What if we bundle everything into the supplemental levy to address earning needs and facility needs? So the, as you can see, the expected bond levy is $4.6 million, and it's highlighted red. You might ask, well, why is such a big difference? Because of all the defeasances that the district was doing. So defeasance is like paying off debt. So the more you put in, the smaller your interest and principal payments are. And so right now, we're at the point where if the district decides not to collect any extra dollar for the defeasance, just whatever it is, 12 months, then $4.6 million will do that. Let's say, assuming we do not know, you know, what the House Bill 292 is going to be, hopefully the same, kind of feels like the most conservative approach, maybe to estimate 75% of it in case that they decide to put the funds somewhere else, hoping for more.
That was a
Let's
tax
assume-
relief bill.
Right.
Yeah, the
that we
tax
had.
relief bill, yeah. Let's say it's 75%. So the total amount to be collected, we could fit in with an $8.5 million, which does increase the tax rate, but not doubles it. Because the amount is increased over here, and Michael proposed to put the difference for comparison purposes, the difference per $100,000.
having trouble seeing it and my eyes are not good, so I was trying to.
Okay,
So this scenario one is the green choice one, and scenario two is our 50-50, am I saying?
so
Or-
the, scenario one
Is,
would be green and red.
okay, and then scenario two is yellow and red?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, and the scenario two is gonna be yellow and red. So with the scenario two, there will be, the levy, and I believe the scenario two is not necessarily yellow and red, is what if the decision is only for $2.5 million to address learning needs, and hoping that nothing breaks down and wait for better times to address the facility needs. Just to show the difference of $2.5 million in supplemental levy, whatever it could fit. It's to show the same situation, to show that the tax rate will actually drop because there is no need to collect, well, there is always a need, but the outstanding principal and interest payments over here would add up only to $4.6 million. So this is just to compare what the tax rate will look with $2.5 million levy and with $5.3 million levy, whatever the decisions are, and to show the difference in between tax rate. Current option one, or any other option, just to compare the
Per
difference.
100,000.
Yeah, but if we do a levy, we should just do the whole thing.
That's what we need to discuss, you know,
Yeah.
when I.
Can,
Go ahead.
can you go back to the slide that has the green, yellow, and pink?
The options they have.
Yeah. This slide makes, I mean, I can understand this better.
So is the difference between half-seats and 50-50 the percentage?
It's budget cuts, right?
Yeah,
One of them requires budget cuts and one of them doesn't.
right.
It's more, yeah.
Halvesies we would use part of our fund balance, and it would drop down to 9%.
Yeah,
Right,
But
but that would still keep us in good standing.
yes,
If we go that far, because that's important to me.
yeah. We've worked hard to get to that point.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
don't wanna see that go.
So then if we chose 50-50, we have to decide what we're cutting?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I don't.
And then so hypothetically, scenario B plus D, then, in addition, we've got some of the additional funds that you're talking about coming from the state, and then also, you know, like the cost savings ideas that you have. And if we keep the 15% in our fund balance, then it seems like we may be able to do some of that vertical type thing a little better if we're, you know, with self-insurance, if we have more in our fund balance.
Correct, yes. It seems like, and this is the reason why the districts of our size or smaller, it's like money makes money. You know, like in order to save money, you gotta put an initial deposit. And for example, with the self-insurance, you don't really lose your money, but you lose access to your funds for 2 years because they wanna make sure you're self-sustained. And this is where the option sounds so appealing, but there's the restricted access to the funds for a couple of years. But correct, with the higher balance, there is also a higher possibilities to start restructuring the balance.
I'm gonna kind of argue the other side.
Yes.
Just because, I mean, I get it, if we go 50-50, but then once again, we're scraping, we're looking, we're doing all this type of
And
thing.
we always do that anyway.
We do it
always
anyway, we
review
always do
how can
that,
we be more
yeah,
efficient.
we do. But for students, and that's what I'm here for, to me, the half-seat, the A, is what we wanna do. It helps us with teachers, it helps us with everything. And I guess, I feel like, I'm just presenting the other side, I feel like we have done such due diligence at trying to keep tax rates low, at trying to do whatever we can. I just don't wanna see kids, you know, us trying to, gotta cut a teacher here, we gotta look for this here. And the difference is what, $50 per 100,000, if I remember, close?
44, yes, correct.
40, yeah.
The But then even with half-days, we still potentially have money from the governor or whatever that looks like.
Right, but that's money we cannot count on.
Yeah, I get really nervous about that because
Remember last
there's a
week?
pretty good chance that's not gonna happen.
Well, and if it does happen, it comes with strings attached that make it harder for us.
We can't just use that to
We
go
just
fix
can't
the
use it
bridge.
wherever we want to use it. It comes with strings, that's what it's always been. That bothers me.
And I would add that there's some unknowns at this point when we have to make a decision. And we obviously have next month to actually approve the resolution, which is the actual ballot language. But we don't always have to levy what that's the max, right?
Right.
We can't levy more, but there's nothing saying that if we do get more, like let's say that we get a big chunk of facilities, that we wouldn't levy whatever amount we got. You know, that would be up to the board's discretion, but.
So we can approve one of these and before we actually levy, we could come
Absolutely.
back.
Absolutely. When you set the budget, that's one of the items that Almira reviews with you, is what that payment is that we collect, what we collect from our taxpayers to make our debt payment.
I wanted to make a point. In the past, when we've ran levies, we levied $2.5 million.
Yep.
Over 2 years.
Yep. And
I mean, now look at the growth. We look at how many more schools we have than when we started that. I think like $2.5 million today compared to 10 years ago when we were in a levy, like it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And we're still asking for 2.5.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that that's unreasonable.
Yeah.
And I also feel like we have, now don't get me wrong, I mean, I respect everyone that lives in our community.
Absolutely.
But I do feel like we have another generation of people that have moved here that are support this. And I think passing a levy now compared to 6 years ago is gonna be, it'll be tough, but it'll be easier than it was 10 years ago. I think.
Well, I think the other thing is, we have not asked for a levy. We had a chance to do that the last 2 years and we haven't.
Yeah.
You know, we have done what we could have done and have borrowed and paid and done what we, and, I mean, it's time. I mean, we're gonna be short 5 million basically.
Yeah.
You know, and I just don't think that's fair to the education of our students.
Well, if we're talking about a bond, I don't wanna rush it, like, I wanna make sure we're doing it right, and we do it with diligence and have the right
And this will give us time.
This will
Right,
give us a
yeah.
little breathing room, and plus,
So, you know,
I've kind of walked through some of the schools, I noticed we have some room, not a
Yeah.
lot at the secondary, we'll say that. Sorry, secondary
Well,
people,
like
but.
we shared, our growth wasn't
High
what we
school?
projected
Definitely not.
in the elementary and middle school, but it was over
Right.
capacity in the high
Right.
school.
I guess my point being, yes, would I love to run a bond and a levy and just ask for it? Yes, but I can't, and I can't do that as a board member, I can't do that as a member of this community. But what I can do is do the best I can with what we have, and I kinda like the A and B, that's where I'm leaning.
well, I don't wanna budget cut anything, so I'm A and D. I'm not gonna make that decision for the kids, I don't think that's fair.
I kinda like D.
Just D?
You'd have to do A and B,
Yeah.
A or B plus D.
Yeah.
C got cut, if you're wondering where C went. So, we do know how to, our alphabet.
So either A or B is asking people for the same amount of money. One of them uses funds in our fund balance and one of them doesn't. So we're asking the taxpayers for the exact same amount of money with either
Yeah.
one. So and the ESSER funds that we received for the past how many years? 2 or 3?
It started during the
Pandemic.
pandemic. Yeah.
Or
and then-
about 2.5 million, 3 million?
So it was a $9 million allocation and we were allowed to use it over the course of 3 years. So the decision was to split it evenly. So there were some years back and forth, but $2.5 $3 million a year. That was.
Some of it was earmarked for specific things, but we did have a plan that we had to write.
mean, I really like the idea of keeping the fund balance high. So, and I don't know what, I mean, it's really hard to make a decision without knowing what things, the budget reduction would mean.
Yeah.
So.
Welcome to the board.
So, I mean.
It's hard, it is
I can
hard.
only assume that it's probably some of the things added in the last 3 years with the ESSER funds, or, I mean, that seems like where it would cut.
Well, and some of it we added, and I hated doing this, but when we do supplemental levies, we've put teachers on that, because we had no other way to do it.
Sure.
And I hate doing that, because when it goes away like this, then we're.
So it's nurses and
Additional
instructional
social
coaches
workers,
and social
counselors,
workers.
yeah.
Mhm.
Do you mind going to?
Yes.
The next, I'm a visual person, you can go beyond that. So I was just trying to, I can't just work year to year, I have to look ahead. And I know Elmira, she just did that, what's past, present, and future. So this is like a puzzle you can organize any way you want. I know, Trustee Lowe, you and I talked about this when we met, just kind of like, what is that? And why don't we have one? You know, kind of conversation. And so we talked about, this is consistency for us, that every year we would have a certain amount that we could plan on getting major projects done, repair, replace. And we haven't had that since 2013. So it might be something for the board to consider in the future, right, it as a part of the plan. But this, this kind of gives you that green and red together for a total of 5.3 we would ask. And it would be levy for learning and critical maintenance needs. We would be talking about more teachers, or keep the teachers we have, but we'd say more, right, because that's what it means. And a roof on the annex at Hubbard. Fire alarm systems in our schools that work. We'd be talking about those critical pieces. Now, if we got $1 million from the governor's allocation for next year, we wouldn't have to levy 5.3, we would levy 4.3. And tell that, like, hey, we had to make this decision. And we may know before the next board meeting what that amount is, but we don't know when it's gonna happen. But then you can think about what's coming, you know, with this bond, and I just put these as hypothetical dates because they're the next election dates, assuming August is off the calendar for an election, like we talked about during the work session. It could be further wherever you wanted to put it. And I also put that, you know, supplemental levy as a hypothetical, just to give you an idea of some options. So you're not just like, how does today's decision impact in the future?
But if we, either way, the 5.3 million with choice A or B is still, I mean, plus D, that's still the amount, but if we opt to make some budget cuts, instead of not levying the 5.3 million and we get $1 million, we can opt to not make $1 million of budget cuts.
Absolutely, that could be absolutely an option.
And I really feel like the 50-50 is the best way to go for that reason. And continue, and if we get additional money, we don't make as many budget cuts and we continue to use that money and still levy the full amount.
But the money's not guaranteed, so, and that.
No, so we may have to make the budget cuts, yeah.
So I'm not.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to make that decision tonight, right?
Sure.
You would tell us in March when we start our budget process, here, go forth and do this. And we would do that as options. You have till June to do that.
So the only decision that needs to be made tonight is whether to do A or B plus D?
Yeah, or something else.
Something else, right.
Yeah. You would go to that next slide, next couple slides.
Do you want to say something?
Well, our tax rate has gone consistently down.
Yes.
We've saved our taxpayers a lot of money by doing that. It was when we voted, 10 years ago, to keep it no higher than 5, and today it's less than 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
$1.24, which was the plan, right? Set the goal and have growth pay for itself as much as possible, and that's what we've done.
Do we know what that percentage would
What
look?
you've done, not me.
Do we know what that percentage would look like if we ran a levy for A and D? Do we know what that percentage, it wouldn't go above 5, right?
No.
No.
So
167 or something.
A
Yeah.
and D.
So we'd still be under 2.
I mean, it's really
Yeah.
A or B
Yeah.
and D because it's the same amount of money.
It would still be
Yeah.
under, I still think,
Sorry,
yeah.
it would be here.
But when do you run the supplemental levy?
We would run it in May.
Okay.
That's the next option, otherwise we'd have to wait until November and we'd be making cuts before
We
that.
need
So our
it May for
budget would
teachers
balance.
and for that.
We actually need them in March, but that's no longer an option.
I would make a motion that we levy for everything now, and then maybe we can amend that before May,
We could,
depending on what happens. So that would be my motion.
so it'd be for 5.3 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're saying A and D?
A and D.
And I'd like to make an additional motion for B and D and keep the budget high, or the balance high, in order to use some other opportunities for cost savings.
I'm gonna vote for A and D.
First, we need a second.
Well, there's two motions, so I'm just saying my vote is for A and D, the first motion.
So do you make a
So
second?
you
For
would
the
second.
second, the first.
Okay, so you're gonna second it?
Yes.
So we have a second for A and D. All right, all in favor? Kirsty?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
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 I do not.
Well, you can say no,
You
you
can
don't
say
have to
no.
say aye,
Yeah,
you can
that's
say
why I
no.
said no.
Say no.
We can always go back before May if
If we need to.
if the state comes
Well,
through
what
and gives
if
us
we
money.
made the decision which option we wanna do at the next board meeting? Do we wanna do A or B? Like, we wanna levy the 5.3 million, right?
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
Like
Either,
Peter
either
said.
either one is the 5.3, we can make the decision what we're gonna do maybe at the next board meeting
Absolutely.
potentially.
Yeah.
We can put, what you will need to do, now we have direction from you. We will go to the attorney that writes the ballot language for us, because it's become more complicated.
Yeah.
I used to be able to like take an old one and update it, but not anymore. So they will write that ballot disclosure, and then you will vote on that language. But at least this gives us a direction to start.
We're getting the
Parking.
wheels going
Yeah.
so that we can
So
start.
we're saying yes to A and D, and if something changes, we
We
can
can
amend
make
it, but
We can
otherwise
amend
we'll
it.
We
keep
still have
it
time.
A and D.
We still have time to amend that ballot language.
Okay.
And we're looking at it for it in May. That's what we
May.
want. Just wanna
That's
make
the
sure
next
that's clarified.
opportunity. Yeah. Whew, that was a lot, guys. Thank you so much.
Oh.
I appreciate it.
It's been a
That was a
long
very
meeting.
formal, guys. Chairman and trustees, thank you.
Okay, this should be an easy one, the next one.
I don't think so. I'm gonna,
Are you gonna say something? So, I would, like to, can I make a motion or no, can I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we move the July 9th board meeting to July 16th,
Can I ask why?
because it's close to July 4th, and there are a lot of people who'll be on vacation and out and around and about,
I'll be here anyway, so.
either one.
Yeah.
It just
I don't
gives us
know.
that, it just gives, well, it's good to know.
I
It
second.
just gives it a chance. Okay, there's a second. All in favor?
I'm fine with it.
You are?
Aye.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's go Kirsty,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
JD,
Aye.
Hillary, Kim, aye. Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Moving right along.
Chairman
That's the-
Nixon
yes.
and trustees, I'm just gonna keep going.
Please do.
We have a youth council, our vice chair, Owen, here tonight to ask your permission to allow him to distribute a survey to students. He's gonna outline and talk about that. Our policy actually states that I can give approval, but given, some of the concerns around surveys over the last year, we thought it would be not only good for you to know and approve, but also good for Owen to have this experience. I'm sorry I didn't tell you it was gonna be this late. I apologize, Owen. So we're gonna turn it over to you.
You need an excuse
Do you
for
want the
school
clicker?
tomorrow. We'll give it to you.
You feeling better? Okay.
I'm a little bit of a cough, so excuse me if I cough. All right. Chairwoman Kim and trustees, my name is Owen Neese, and I'm here today to get your approval for a survey on school start times. So the purpose of this survey is to gather the opinions of people, as most surveys are. I'm particularly trying to get opinions from students and staff at multiple schools in the Kuna School District. The target respondents, or target audience, if you will, are the students and staff at Kuna Middle School, Fremont Middle School, and Kuna High School. I've already reached out to the Kuna High School administration team and the administration team at Fremont Middle School. I still need to reach out to the administration team at Kuna Middle School, though.
She's right there.
And the reason that I want these people to take part in the survey is because we want to have a diverse range of opinions so that we can really get the most out of any changes that we make. Question 1, and these questions are from the survey. Question 1, should schools in the Kuna School District start later? Now this is really just the baseline question of the whole survey. It's really simple, just a yes or no question. Just asking people if they think that schools should start later or if they should stay the same. Question 2, do you think school start times affect your learning or teaching? This is a really important question, at least to me, because it's allowing people to tell us whether or not they think that the early start times that we currently have are affecting them in a negative way. And I also wanted to make clear that teachers can also take this survey because their opinions need to be valued as well. Question 3, do you get 8 or more hours of sleep per night? And sleep is really important for our brains, right? We need sleep to be able to take in information properly and be able to absorb educational materials. And with the large amount of educational materials we're presented with every day, it can be really overwhelming, and sleep can really help decrease stress. Question 4, do you eat a meal before coming to school? Likewise to sleep, food is also very important for keeping the brain functioning as it should, and that's really all I have to say there. Question 5, would you sacrifice earlier release times for later start times? Now this is really a controversial question. I've seen the controversy from people that I've already asked, and they really say that it is hard for them to want to start school later, but still have to sacrifice getting out at earlier times because of extracurriculars and jobs. I think that if we make an effort with a subcommittee or with local legislation like the city council, we could try to avoid interruptions in the workforce. The uses of these results, obviously we can use these to implement schedule changes and make the schools have later start times. And we can also have valuable knowledge of student opinions that we can also use for other school changes. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
They're all yes or no questions, correct?
Yes.
So there won't be any other opinions, okay.
Did you say this was created in the youth council?
I created it personally.
You did it, okay.
But it's a topic of interest of the youth council
Yes.
members.
Are you a part of the youth council?
I am. I'm the vice chairman.
Oh, and I have one suggestion that might be an interesting ad, and it would just be, are you a student or are you a teacher or staff member? Because then you might be able to separate the answers, or what we call disaggregate those, that information, so you could see if they're very similar or if they're different.
And I know another recommendation Ms. Westfall added, brought up to me. She said that we should add a question about what school they go to, if they're a high school student or a middle school student. So that, like you said, we can separate answers.
So that would be up at the beginning, probably,
Right.
type thing.
So was this a discussion you guys had at youth council?
I don't believe we
It was
did
in the
discuss it.
brainstorming, I think, but
Yeah.
this would be good data to bring back and have a great discussion about it.
Any other questions?
So how do you plan to use the data collected from the survey?
I would like to use the data to create a task force or a subcommittee within the district to change school start times so that we can make school schedules better for teens who don't get enough sleep or aren't able to get food in the morning, because those are really important things for education. Any questions?
No? Do we have a motion to accept this survey and begin this process?
I motion that we approve, the survey as according to policy 639 for the Kuna Youth Advisory Council.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor, Kirsten?
Aye.
Aye.
JD? Aye. Aye too. By the way, I have it on good authority, you're a very good student. So-
Is that from Mr. Nixon?
That is from Mr. Nixon. Yes, it is.
He's also a
He
very
said-
good employee.
Yeah, is he? Okay, gotcha. So, yeah, thank you.
Oh, and this is what we hoped for when we set up the youth council, so thank you for being the first person to kind of step out and try it. Thank you.
Well,
So
thank you all for your time, I know it's very valuable. Hope you all have a wonderful
Thank you
evening.
for sharing.
You too, thanks for
So-
waiting. Okay, next, we have a purchase we're gonna look at.
Chairman Nixon, trustees, I am Stuart Vickers. I am the CTE administrator, and I'm here to ask you if you will consider the purchase now. It's a 2013 3500 more power, a GMC Sierra, and it's for our career technical. It's for a lot of it's our trades and industries, but through the years, we found that we are sorely in need of resources, and we've had to wait around for other CTE programs to help us out because we just don't have the ability to do certain things. Right now, we have a food trailer that is being pulled by either our Chef Gwen or one of the other trades and industries teachers. It's not good. We also have a trailer that we purchased just at the beginning of this year with Perkins funds to start hauling automotive for our auto diesel program. We've had to wait around and wait for other people to deliver things to us. We've had a couple engines that were over at West Ada, so down at Idaho State, and we've had to wait for things to be delivered to us. And we just need to start creating our infrastructure. So I was able to team with Kendall Auto in Meridian, and I reached out to them. I reached out to a number of auto dealerships and talked to them about who we are, what we do, what we need. And Kendall Auto was gracious enough to really jump in and really dive in to be part of this partnership. They looked at a lot of different vehicles for us, and this vehicle would normally be sold at about $42,000. They were able to bring that price down to about $32,000. They gave us a couple different options, but we feel like this one was the best. They are also wanting to wrap it with Kuna Career Technical Center and Kendall Auto as part of our partnership. Also, I've been able to work with, they are putting that auto center between Meridian and Nampa, and talking about partnerships with getting our kids to do internships in their buildings. So they are all in, Kendall Auto is all in, and so this has been a great partnership. The funding is through our added costs, our CTE added costs. We were fortunate enough this year that we got additional added costs. But the thing with added costs is it is to improve your programs, and it has to be spent this year. So I'm using a lot of the extra added costs to really build the infrastructure, particularly in our trades and industries, because that's one of the areas that we're relatively new and really lacking in a lot of resources. Do you have any questions?
How much money do we have in that fund before the end of the year that has to be spent?
All of it. But
And how much is
so we got, and I'm trying to think right off the top of my head, we received an additional 200,000 plus. Now we've been spending that already. We have used a grant to add a tech lab. We've also used some of this money to add a Mac lab because it was just really necessary. We were finding that in our IT programs, we went to an Adobe conference and found out that we were really lacking in our ability to step up to some of the things that those kids needed to do. Right now, I would say that we probably got about 100,000 left in that account. Now, just to be transparent with you, one of the next things I'm probably gonna stand in front of you and ask for is a forklift. Because when we did our program quality review with the state CTE division, some of the things that they said, this is one of the areas that you're lacking. You need to have the ability to have a forklift in your shop. It would be good for our auto, diesel, construction, to move things around, pick up the things we need to pick up. And it would also allow all those students to be forklift certified that want to be. So the next step is to train one of our teachers to do forklift certification as well. So that's transparency for the future, but this is for right now. And so this is what I'm asking for. They have brought the cost down to $35,295, and again, they're going to pay for a wrap, and going to be, I think, a really great partnership with Candelato.
And how many miles does the vehicle have?
71,000. It was a one-owner vehicle, and it is in really nice condition. It has a shell. It's and it's a dual cab.
I'll make a motion that we purchase the 2013 2500 HP GMC Sierra for career and technical education for $35,295.
Is there a second?
I'll
Okay. Any discussion?
No.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And
Thank
aye.
you.
We're all good, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, trustees, my part marks the middle of the meeting. We're trying, Trustee Bruce and Trustee Lowe joined our committee, it's collaboration, it's kind of got a cool name. But we're trying to make this go a little bit better for you guys if you would like. We've broken them into three parts, the ones that need to be adopted, the ones that need to be amended, and the ones that need to be removed.
We would like that, and we will do actions on 3 of them instead of each one.
And then I'm ready to speak if you guys would like them broken out, but if you want to say make a motion on all 3 at once, or all 8 at once, or all 1 at once, that's up to you.
Is there any questions?
I need to just make a clarification on the habitual truancy 522. I went, after the meeting, went and looked. The policy doesn't clarify exactly how that truancy is figured, and I think on I think on Tyler Sis it calculates your attendance as a percentage by hours, and so you can technically qualify by percentage of hours, but not qualify by days or attendance in classes. So I think it would be good to clarify that. Like how it says per grading period, we added in our, but 90% attendance by hours calculated on Tyler Sis or by days. And it's
So you're
possible to have
saying it
that
should be
different.
one or the other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which one do you recommend?
I recommend what Tyler Sis says, so it's consistent, but
Is that hours?
It's hours.
Yeah, because they do school hours now more than they do days.
And the only reason I know is because Brooklyn qualified by hours and didn't qualify by days.
Isn't that something?
So,
That's an adjustment you'd like to see for before the second read?
I think so.
Okay. That's fine. Deanne's there, absolutely.
So do we need to make a motion as we accept that just changed?
So when you make the motion, you have to read each of the titles and then at 522 state what exception you want to have made in there.
Okay.
Do you want to adopt the first A, section A first?
We can.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to adopt section A? All those policies, I have to go back here.
Employing retired personnel accommodating students with seizure disorders.
And this is the first read for these, correct?
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion, Kirsty?
I'll make a motion to adopt policies 465, 558, and 615.1 for the first read.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, in favor, Kirsty?
Aye.
Michael? JD?
Aye.
Hillary? Aye. And now, we're looking at amending the second set. And I need a motion to adopt the second set along with stating the change in 522.
I so move.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
And in favor, Kirsty?
Did she say that correctly? Okay.
Mhm.
Aye.
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
And?
Aye.
And me, aye, good. And the last one, to remove the following policies. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to remove policy 870, Board of Trustees records.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Hillary?
Aye.
And JD?
Aye.
And Michael?
Aye.
And Kirsty?
Aye.
And aye. Okay. And now for the good of the order.
What time is it down the hill?
It starts at, I think, was it 9?
Oh,
8,
good.
9? I have
Please
to
say
look
9,
again.
not 8.
I think it's 9.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
Do you know, Deanne? You can come at 9 if you'd like.
Fill out that survey.
hang on.
I should look at
I
my
don't need
phone, I
that.
think I've got my phone.
8 hours of sleep.
I'm good.
It is, starts at 9. So I have my phone.
All right.
Both
And we
days
can-
are at 9,
Yes, are you planning on going?
at least to one or the
Oh,
other.
good, maybe we can carpool. That'd be great. Just 2 of us though.
I'm going at 9.
Sorry. It's called open meeting laws.
Well, I'm going Monday.
Okay.
So,
Okay, that might work. The other thing I would like to say on the good of the order is the board webinars, which I think would help to be on the board. I know Michael took one of those, and I think it really opened up and helped you understand some things. So anybody else, I would definitely recommend them. And Wendy will be teaching one of them. And which one is that? Is it the?
Teaching a couple of them with
Yeah.
Ann Ritter, who's a longstanding trustee in Idaho.
And how do we access these? Is that the link? That link is on here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a cost involved,
There's a-
correct?
Yeah, it's $50, I think, per,
And the school district would
yeah.
handle
And
that.
we get reimbursed from the state because it's
It's a,
so
reimbursable
we just
expense
let
for
you know if
training.
you want it.
I think they have a grant for it too, that's why we get
Yep.
reimbursed. It's a
We
grant.
grant for some of it.
Do you know if they're recorded and you can watch them at other times?
Yeah, I believe so.
That'd be great.
I know somebody who's on some of those, I can give you the information.
What?
Okay.
I move that we adjourn.
Oh, you do? Okay, do I have a second for that?
He's done.
Second.
Sorry.
And here we go,
You guys
Kirsty.
can talk.
Aye.
And Michael.
Aye.
And JD.
Aye.
And Hill. And the aye. Hey guys, thanks, it was a long one.